When the Steelers drafted Darnell Washington, there was excitement, sure, but also a fair share of questions. Not about his size, because the guy looks like he was built in a football lab. Not about his blocking, which was already elite coming out of Georgia. No, the questions were about how and when this team would actually use him. 5 weeks into the season, we're starting to get a very real answer. Now, if you just look at the stat sheet, it won't knock you off your feet. 6 catches. That's it. But if you stop there, you're missing the whole story. Because all 6 of those catches, they've come in the last 2 games. And more than that, he's been on the field for about 80% of the offensive snaps in each of those matchups. That's a massive jump. That's not a fluke. That's a pattern. And as Mike Tomlin likes to say, 2 is a trend. And this trend, it's a good one. Look, nobody's trying to crown Darnell Washington as the second coming of Gronk or call him the next Heath Miller. But let's give the man his credit. This is a player who brings things to the field that flat out don't show up on paper. There's a uniqueness to his game that most tight ends just don't have. He's not just a big body out there. He's a mismatch. He's a problem. And right now, he's becoming something that's been missing from this offense for a long, long time. What stands out most, and what probably deserves the most respect, is that he's been growing. Quietly, steadily, and with purpose. He's not just a blocker anymore. He's not just a 6th offensive lineman with hands. He's running cleaner routes, finding soft spots in coverage, and showing real chemistry with his quarterback. He's becoming reliable. And that word, in the NFL, especially when you're talking about young pass catchers, that means everything. Go back to that Browns game. First offensive snap. Cleveland comes out showing full commitment to stuffing the run. 10 guys hovering at the line of scrimmage. Everyone in that stadium, everyone watching at home, probably thought the same thing. Here comes a predictable run for 1 or 2 yards, and then we're into 2nd and long, just like always. But nope, Arthur Smith had something dialed up, something special. Out of his standard formation, with Darnell lined up next to Broderick Jones, they sold the run hard. And then suddenly, Darnell breaks off the line like a freight train, heading down the sideline, getting behind the defense. And Rodgers hits him in stride with a perfect pass. Just like that, what looked like a throwaway snap turned into a chunk play. That's the kind of wrinkle this offense has been starving for. That's the kind of impact a guy like Washington can make. And honestly, it shouldn't be that surprising. Because even back in training camp, the signs were there. This was a guy who came in with a chip on his shoulder, knowing full well that he had to prove he could be more than just a blocker. And the coaching staff saw it too. They didn't toss him into the deep end. They brought him along steadily. And now that the game is slowing down for him, we're starting to see what all the hype was about. But here's the part that gets tricky and maybe even a little frustrating. This team is overloaded with tight ends. Jonnu Smith is here. Pat Freiermuth is here. Connor Hayward is here. That's a crowded room. Jonnu had 88 catches last season. More than half of those went for first downs. He's a proven asset. Freiermuth is still young, still has upside, and still has fans who believe he should be a bigger part of the offense. And then there's Hayward, who just made a gorgeous touchdown catch against the Browns and continues to find ways to contribute in key moments. So, naturally, you're left asking the same question the whole fan base is asking. How do you use all of them? How do you make room for 3, maybe even 4 tight ends in an offense that's still trying to figure out what it wants to be? Especially when you've got a wide receiver room that's thin behind your WR1. That brings us right back to Darnell. Because while the coaching staff is trying to find balance, while they're figuring out how to maximize personnel, Darnell Washington is quietly, confidently forcing their hand. You can't take him off the field right now. Not with the way he's playing. Not with the way he's blocking. Not with the way he's starting to stretch the defense just enough to make linebackers think twice and safeties adjust. That kind of presence, it changes how you build game plans. It changes how defenses prepare. And maybe more importantly, it opens doors for the other guys on this offense. Suddenly, a guy like George Pickens can get more favorable matchups. Suddenly, the run game doesn't feel like it's running into a brick wall every first down. Darnell might not be filling up the box score, but he's changing the way things look out there. What also has to be said is this. The team believed in him from day one. Even after bringing in Jonnu Smith, even with Pat and Connor still in the picture, There was never a sense that Darnell was being pushed to the side. Quite the opposite. He stayed steady. He stayed committed. He stayed ready. And now he's earning the snaps and the trust that come with that kind of approach. That's why it's time to stop seeing him as just a piece of the future. He's a part of the now. He's tight in one right now. Whether the depth chart says it or not, the tape says it. The usage says it. The trust on critical downs says it. And the way he's helping this offense stabilize in the trenches says it loud and clear. Think about it this way. When the Steelers are in a jam, when the drive is teetering, when they need to calm things down and take control of the line of scrimmage, who's on the field? Darnell is. That's not a coincidence. That's not rotation. That's trust. And yeah, it's still early. The season has a long way to go. But if the last two games are any indicator, this offense might have quietly unlocked something powerful, something unique in Darnell Washington. He's not just another tight end. He's not just a role player. He's not just a matchup piece. He's becoming a cornerstone. And if this keeps trending the way it has been, we could be talking about Darnell as one of the most important pieces of this offensive rebuild. Not just for this year, but for years to come. Because this team, for all its weapons, for all its promise, has been missing something steady, something dominant, something dependable. And maybe, just maybe, they found it in number 0. Now, while everyone's rightfully buzzing about what Darnell's emergence means, we got to zoom out a bit and talk about the other side of the coin, the wide receivers. And yeah, let's just say it. Things are thin, real thin. Outside of the main guy, this wide receiver room doesn't have that next man up feeling. In fact, it barely feels like it has a second man up at all. That WR2 spot, it's becoming a glaring hole, and it's not something the team can keep brushing under the rug. Last game, one catch by a wide receiver not named Metcalf. Just one. And no, that's not some kind of typo. That's the reality this offense is dealing with right now. Calvin Austin, banged up, not expected to play against Cincinnati. And the backups? Guys like Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson. They're giving it everything they've got, but they're just not striking fear into any defensive coordinator. Now look, this team can lean on tight ends, sure. The playbook can shift, and Arthur Smith is certainly showing he's not afraid to get creative with personnel. But in National Football League, if you don't have at least 2 reliable outside weapons, you're going to get figured out. And fast. Defenses will crowd the box, sit on your tight end routes, and force your hand with pressure. That's why this WR2 discussion is so critical right now. And this isn't some new problem. It didn't start last week. It's been lingering. It's been whispered about since last season. And it feels like the team, front office and all, has been trying to just patch it up, hoping someone from within would take that leap. Maybe Calvin Austin becomes that guy. Maybe Roman Wilson blossoms. Maybe a trade shakes things up. But right now, none of those maybes are filling the gap on Sundays. What's worse is that this team has real momentum right now. They're coming off 2 gutsy performances. They're in the thick of the playoff picture. This isn't the time to wait and see. This is the time to push. You're watching the defense hold teams to field goals, the offensive line finally starting to win some battles, and the quarterback, Rodgers, settling in. You cannot waste that momentum by sitting on an incomplete offense. You just can't. And let's not pretend like the front office doesn't know this. Omar Khan, he's not asleep at the wheel. In fact, word is he's been actively shopping around. Not just for wide receivers either. He's got his eye on offensive tackle depth too. He's trying to cover every base because he knows how this league works. One injury at the wrong position can derail an entire season. And after what happened last year when George Pickens went down and there was literally no one to fill the void, Omar's not looking to make the same mistake twice. So, yeah, when you hear reports that the Steelers are looking for a WR2, that's not breaking news. That's not some wild rumor. That's been on the to-do list for a while now. The difference is the clock's ticking louder. The trade deadline is creeping up fast, and the team's record is forcing a decision. Either you push in and make a run, or you stay safe and risk fizzling out down the stretch. And no, we're not talking about finding another Metcalf. That guy's one of one. The chemistry he's got with Rodgers, the timing, the route tree, the sheer physicality that doesn't just grow on trees. But what you can find is someone who complements him. A veteran maybe. Somebody with crisp routes, reliable hands, and a little bit of attitude. Someone who knows how to get open when the play breaks down. Someone who can draw a little attention and open up space for Pickens, Darnell, Jonnu, the whole group. Because here's the harsh truth. If Pickens misses time, there's no one else on this roster who can run his routes. Calvin Austin? Different skill set. Roman Wilson? Still developing. Jonnu Smith? Built like a receiver, sure, but not running sideline comebacks or deep outs. And if that guy's not in the building when you need him, that's on the front office. That's on the plan. This is why the WR2 spot matters so much. Not just for style points, not just for balance, but for survival. If you're serious about winning, if you believe this roster can make a real playoff push, then you've got to give Rodgers the tools to get there. Right now, he's making it work with smoke and mirrors, tight end-heavy sets, creative formations, mixing in Warren and Gainwell out of the backfield. But that's not sustainable. Defenses will adjust. And when they do, you need someone who can win a one-on-one on the outside, someone who can go get a ball on 3rd and 8, someone who gives Rodgers another trusted target. Let's take a second to look at the numbers. Right now, Metcalf leads the team in catches, tied, actually, with Kenny Gainwell, which says a lot in itself. The leading wide receiver is sharing the top spot with a running back. And while Metcalf has the yards, the first downs, the explosive plays, after him, the drop-off is steep. Jonnu has 17 catches. Jaylen Warren has 13. Calvin Austin has 10. And then you're into the single digits. It's not good, and it's not enough. Now, yes, 5 games is still a small sample size. One of those was in Dublin, and the passing game was almost non-existent that day. So, sure, you can argue there's still time for things to shake out. But the reality is the lack of production from the wide receiver group is not a fluke. It's a personnel issue, and it's going to haunt this team if they don't address it. Again, not saying you blow things up. Not saying you go and make some blockbuster move that mortgages the future. But a smart addition, a guy who can plug in and give you real snaps, that's more than doable. It's necessary, especially when you consider the landscape of the league right now. Teams are already starting to make calls. Some are realizing they're out of the race. Others are looking to offload salary or get draft picks. This is the window, and Omar Khan knows it. If the right deal comes up, and it will, the Steelers have to act. Because right now, for all the good vibes around the emergence of Darnell Washington, for all the improvements in the trenches and the creativity from Arthur Smith, there's still a fundamental imbalance in this offense. Too much is leaning on Metcalf. Too much is funneled through one guy. And while he can carry the load for a while, it's not fair to ask him to do it for 17 weeks. And what happens when he draws double coverage? When teams start shading a safety over the top every single down? That's when you need a WR2 to step up. That's when you need a guy who can make a defense pay for overcommitting. Right now, the Steelers don't have that. Not yet, but they have a chance to change that. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The Pittsburgh Steelers are reportedly making waves in the NFL rumor mill, with whispers that they've secured the services of defensive powerhouse KJ Henry. While the team hasn't confirmed the deal officially, sources close to the organization suggest that the move could inject immediate energy into a pass rush that has been searching for consistent firepower. Henry, known for his explosive first step and relentless pursuit of quarterbacks, has long been considered one of the league's most promising defensive talents. Fans are already buzzing with anticipation at the thought of him lining up alongside the Steelers' current defensive core, where his presence could force offenses to rethink their game plans entirely. Insiders hint that Henry's versatility is a key factor in Pittsburgh's interest. Capable of both rushing the passer and holding his ground against the run, he could slot seamlessly into multiple fronts, giving defensive coordinator Darnell Washington a new arsenal of schemes to experiment with. The buzz isn't just about stats either. It's about the psychological impact on opponents. Rumor has it that teams facing Pittsburgh may now have to account for Henry as a game-changing presence on every snap, potentially opening opportunities for other defenders to make big plays. While nothing is set in stone, the Steelers fan base has already started speculating wildly. Social media is ablaze with mock lineups and defensive projections, imagining a scenario where Henry terrorizes quarterbacks week after week. Of course, skeptics caution that the transition from college standout to NFL disruptor isn't guaranteed, but the excitement is palpable. The rumor has reignited debates about whether the Steelers are positioning themselves as immediate contenders or laying the groundwork for a defensive renaissance that could dominate the league for years to come. If the whispers hold any truth, Pittsburgh may have just made a statement. The pass rush isn't just a weapon. It could become the backbone of a team eager to reclaim its reputation as a defensive juggernaut. Fans are watching closely, knowing that if Henry steps on a Heinz Field this season, the energy, intensity, and sheer disruption he brings could change the Steelers' defensive identity overnight. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.